Yo, I'm coming from that 3-6, so that's why I got them brains spinning. Ain't nobody using blinkers, we ain't good at lane switching. Better get a plane ticket, I ain't flying all you chickens though. Always shoot my shot, better switching off the pick and roll, dishing off the give and go. All my squad is driven, so you can catch us on the road. Promise we ain't doing shows.
Rip City, are you listening? I'm Christian Gamalian. I'm talking with co-host Austin Caphammer, and this is the Peeps and Plaid podcast. We are joined by none other than Ryan Whitledge from the Blazer Tag podcast, our first ever three-time guest. So welcome, Whitty. Thanks for coming on.
Yay! So do I get the belt in the mail? Christian, do you drive that to me? When do I get the award?
We certainly got to figure that out, but it will be forthcoming. So I'll keep you posted.
It's tax deferrable.
Oh,
nice.
I had no knowledge of that, but I'm all
for us.
Yeah, let's go. All right, so the Blazers are 25-31, ninth place in the West, now 4 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies after a disheartening back-to-back, losing to the Pelicans and then losing to the Grizzlies in a game where Damian Lillard went down with a groin injury. The All-Star break is a much-needed break for this depleted roster. The Blazers are running out every night with basically, 7, 8, 9 guys. So Damian Lillard, unfortunately, will not be taking part in the All-Star game due to his injury. Also not in the three-point contest. He's apparently going to be rapping, so hopefully he does well there and doesn't aggravate his injury somehow. It's been 2 weeks since our last episode. The Blazers were doing well at the time thanks to Dame's insanity. That stretch continued through a win in Los Angeles and a night that was devoted to Kobe and a few more really good games from Dame. Gary Trent Jr. also did well. Trevor Ariza obviously was continuing to help out this team. But, there was that crazy no call on the goaltend from Rudy Gobert. So, yeah, it's been a crazy couple weeks. All right, back from technical difficulties. We'll get into all of the talk about what has happened recently for the Blazers. But first off, the trade deadline has come and gone. I'm going to rant for a little bit. Let's go back to 2016. Neil Olshey signed some pretty big contracts back then. They were not necessarily great at the time. We didn't hate them as much then as we do now, but 4 years, $75 million for Allen Crabbe, 4 years, $70 million for Evan Turner, 4 years, $42 million for Mo Harkless, and 4 years, $41 million for Myers Leonard. He praised this team that this would be the core around Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum for the next 4 years. Then, after trading Allen Crabbe for nothing, this core had done nothing significant at the time. At last year's trade deadline, he made a decent trade for Rodney Hood, didn't make a big splash. He said that expiring contracts were all the rage at the trade deadline last year. So this year, we expected, now that you had expiring contracts, that you would make a big splash. At the time we talked about Blake Griffin, Kevin Love. I will take the blame there that I am glad that did not happen, at least for Blake Griffin, because of his injury. But Neil Olshey turned all of this money in the 2016 contracts that could have helped Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers win a championship into 1 year of Trevor Ariza, bird rights to Hassan Whiteside, not even signed for next year. And not only that, but these deals cost the Blazers 2 second-round picks, and they'll be spending $2.8 million per year until 2024 in that Allen Crabbe trade. So I understand. This was a hard market for centers, okay? We look around the Andre Drummond trade, the Clint Capella trade. It wasn't an ideal trade scenario for the Blazers. And I understand these are depreciating assets. You got 4 4-year contracts. A lot of the value in those was in those years that they spent playing for us. But what you had left to work with, you could have done more with, in my opinion. In the scope of Neil Olshey's term as GM, he's lost my trust as a fan completely. So this trade deadline wasn't like me on the fence leaning one way or the other. Oh, what's he going to do? Am I going to be a Neil Olshey fan?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Christian, but we should start that. Tread line. That's the trade deadline.
The tread line. I'm going to get on my
tread line.
And
this is the trade line of
Yes.
2020. It's been rather uneventful for the Trailblazers.
Oh, he's here. Hey.
Hey!
I took you out of my pocket, so there we go.
Oh, love it. Well, welcome to our eyes. We love this. Anyway, So instead of being on the fence, leaning side to side, which way do I feel about Neil Olshey? I was already like sprinting in the other direction with like one ear turned back. Like, are you gonna change my mind? And he didn't. Just like straight up. It wasn't an easy market. Cool, I understand that. I don't really care. Like, you screwed up the 2016 offseason. You didn't capitalize on the deadline last year, and you didn't capitalize on the deadline this year. And we're left with a bunch of ifs. Like, if Hassan Whiteside signs this next year, then we have a good center. If Yusuf Nurkic and him decide to drop their egos and both play on the Portland Trail Blazers, then it can all work out okay. Maybe the Blazers are pretty dang good and have two of the best centers in the league.
Okay, Christian. Okay, keep talking.
Maybe there wasn't an easy answer at the deadline for what to do with these contracts, but it seems like other teams have figured things out. Like the Hawks, they turned Alan Crabb, Evan Turner, and a first-round pick into their starting center for the next 4 years. The Blazers turned Alan Crabb, Evan Turner, and 2 second-round picks into 1 more year of an effective but aging Trevor Ariza and $2.8 million of dead money for the next 5 years. So, yes, I'm personally upset with what Neil Olshey has done. Objectively, we could argue this way, that way. But to me, like, you set yourself up for opportunities to do something with those 2016 contracts. To me, you got to at least go big or go home. Do something where you can at least say you tried. Like, I got LaMarcus Aldridge. I got Robert Covington and Gorgie Dang. Like, there were ways to at least have someone under contract where you at least give yourself another year to do something. With Hassan, it's like he could just choose he doesn't want to be here, and then you're just, stuck with no cap space and nothing to do. Yeah. So, I was not a fan of him trading away Skal for basically nothing. To me, that's just losing depth for next season, so you can save a little bit of money this season. Like, the only way that this trade line,
come on now. We just talked about this.
Trade deadline is okay, is if Neil made it clear to Dame, these are the consequences if we don't trade Hassan Whiteside. There's a lot of what ifs going into next season, all that. And if Dame says, you know what, I want to run with it anyway. I want to see what we can do with this core. Then I can understand that. That's cool. Do what Dame wants. But to me, Neil Olshey has tried to convince us for years that a core of Dame and CJ will work together and will bring a championship. And clearly they're amazing together. And last season, the Blazers are not getting out of the second round without CJ, that's for sure. But I don't know. You can't really convince me that Dame and Jimmy Butler or Dame and Paul George wouldn't be better than Dame and CJ. And both of those players have been traded at least twice in the last 3 years.
I was just thinking about that watching the game the other evening. I can't remember if it was in Nolans or gosh, why am I spacing on that other recent game, Memphis? But I did just think to myself the other day that, is it enough in this NBA environment to have 2 stars the caliber of Dame and CJ? It's to your question. Not Dame, of course, is half that equation, but CJ's great. Yeah. CJ's. But he hasn't really improved over the last 4 years. I think a lot of Blazers Twitter saw that graphic. I think someone had screenshotted Basketball Reference or something. But to your point, I think in today's NBA you have to have 2 superstars, not a superstar and a star. And CJ's a star, but he's not a superstar.
So, to finish my rant, I'm not saying any of this is easy. Being a GM in the NBA is not an easy job. But to me, I look at it and I see other teams seem to be getting it done in ways that Neil just isn't. He's over-promising, under-delivering, and giving us excuses every time and acting like it was the plan all along. And, the plan was Dame and CJ, and, we have Nurk. He's the best trade in the world at the deadline. So, to me, this trade deadline was not a complete disaster. If you have Hassan next season, I could argue for a while why that's not going to work out with Nurk. But the trade deadline itself was not a complete disaster. It's just the straw that broke the camel's back for me, where I'm just done with Neil Olshey personally. So I think Dame is not set up long-term for success, and his contract and CJ's contract are going to cripple Neil's ability to surround this team with championship level talent.
Yeah, it's too bad he didn't end up in New York, right?
Yeah, gosh, don't even get me started on the New York Knicks. Yeah. I'll take Neil Olshey over whatever the heck is going on over there.
Before I just jump in on this on this pie of a discussion that we have in front
Yeah,
of us.
you guys are giving me a lot to unpack here. Geez.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the fork and knife over to our guest, like a good host.
Yeah. After this host spent 10 minutes, I'm ready for my face to get rid of embarrassment when you put me to shame.
Okay, Whitty, let's hear it and give the people what they need.
All right. Well, for one, wow. Did Neil Olshey come and kick your puppy personally? Did he pay somebody to come and kick your puppy? I am actually, of course, there's a level of disappointment with seeing, a billionaire dump a contract to save a couple $1 million. Us little lowly peasants down in the land don't necessarily sympathize with rich people trying to stay rich. So
Yes.
there's that aspect of it. But I do believe that there is an aspect of overreacting that could have been at play that we desperately avoided, and how I think the wrong move wasn't at this trade deadline. The wrong move was at the tail end of last season, and flipping Turner's contract and flipping Myers and flipping Mo, because I do believe that a lot of GMs had the sense that, these big expiring contracts will be easy to get rid of. And what we learned is that no, big expiring contracts are not easy to get rid of. It's a hell of a lot easier to move your pieces around when they're little 10, 12, $14 million players.
Yeah.
And those trade chips are a lot easier to shuffle around the board than a big contract like Whiteside's.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily disappointed that Whiteside didn't go.
And you know what, Whitty, I kind of to chime in here, I kind of almost like Olshey's, to just play devil's advocate. I like his explanation though in that specific regard about Hassan. I like how he did that. Well, the guy's leading the league in blocks and blah, blah. And obviously I know everyone who is a naysayer to keeping him talks about the financial situation and what's to come, but I think that at some level you do have to realize, Nurk still has a calf strain. This guy is leading the league in blocks, like at some level. So I had to interrupt and just say that I did appreciate that reasoning by Mr. Olshey, but a lot of other things I would say I'm not too satisfied about. But continue.
You're good. And then another thing too, talking about Whiteside and Nurk, being on the same team and playing together next year, there's not a universe anywhere in existence in which Hassan Whiteside and Yusuf Nurkic will take the court together and play together a la Twin Towers style.
Yeah.
And where I look at it is, okay, we have his bird rights. And I think also this trade deadline kind of proved a little bit that there's not much of a market. Like Andre Drummond, that was, I don't think that's like the proof that, hey, look, you can trade anybody. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't a market for Whiteside, and there weren't people who were in a rush to get him. And so if he's hoping to go into this offseason and get some big, $100 million contract again, he's going to be sorely mistaken, because that's not going to happen.
And I can see also, I can see also why Detroit wouldn't have wanted him, because if they were trying to move away from that traditional center look, maybe they were just like, we don't want any part of this. So just had to throw that little nugget in there too, because you were saying that the question of the trade anybody can be traded right now type idea is phooey. I think that you're accurate in saying that, because there's a lot more dynamics at play than just simply finances, and if a player's good, it's also what a team wants too.
Yeah, and then this, when you're talking about having the cap space available for, free agents or whatnot, this isn't a sexy draft that's coming up. It's not a sexy free agent class. And so when you're going to look at trying to find more center depth behind Nurk for next year, if you can get Hassan to come back, like regardless if he wants to play on the bench or whatnot, I don't think, as we were just saying, his style is very, he's not going to find a starting role in a lot of teams. Hell, we're seeing the Rockets that are, they don't even like guys that are 6'10" now. But yeah, so I'm just saying, like, if you can get him back for a low price, I think that's worth it. Give him like a 2-year deal or whatever, and I think that works out in the end. As far as Neil not making big splashy moves, I think that there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of fans that just are like, oh, well, why couldn't we have Paul George? Oh, why couldn't we have this guy? And it's not that easy. I mean, like, think about it this way. If there was an awesome trade to be had with the Pacers, and there's every mathematical reason to make it work, it wouldn't happen. Kevin Pritchard does not deal with the Blazers. He does not trade with them. He does not get involved with them. So there are relationships in the league, and you're like, oh, well, there's 29 other teams he can call. Probably not. There's maybe only like 12 that answer the phone for him based off relationships.
Yeah.
So
Neil needs better relationships with his cohorts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's also, there's also agents to, cater to and play to for future relationships.
Yeah.
So, and I don't like the fact that him and Hod over that Rodney Hood trade last year. I freaking love it.
No,
I'm one of those rare people who stands by the fact that I think Dame, CJ, Hood, Collins, and Nurk are pretty damn good starting five. Yeah. And there's every indication that Ariza is going to be back next year. You want to plug him in while you wait for Hood and then decide who's going to start after that. That's freaking great.
I think even if you make a run with that lineup, though, you would need like a LA Clippers of last year's bench performance for a true championship run with that starting five. I don't disagree that that's pretty damn good, but for what our aspirations were going into this year, I think they still needed a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, no.
I think that's what everyone expected, though, too, right?
Well, the team shot themselves in the foot. Everybody was coming out of the organization saying, this is our year. It's a down year for the Warriors. Yep. We all bought that bill of goods, hook, line, and sinker, and injuries and circumstances and all that. And I'm not just saying just injuries, but circumstances and everything, people playing out of position, playing more minutes, it all just kind of sent it down the drain. But now we're seeing guys like Gary Trent that are starting to step up into their roles and get more of those minutes that maybe they wouldn't have gotten had the season stayed on track. And so that kind of lends itself to the benefit for next season. I mean, we were all trying to hang our hats on Anthony Simons as the next coming, but now we're seeing Gary Trent step up and Simons doesn't have necessarily that pressure. Maybe he can develop a little more in his own space. So I don't know. It's not, the world is not on fire as far as I know, but
it is now that Dame's out for 2 weeks.
Well, it's a
season.
great time. It's a 1 to 2 week thing. Steph missed 11 games when he dealt with this injury last year. Blazers don't play again for 8 days. I'm going to say Dame will try to rush it back. I'm going to say he'll probably miss the first 2 games after the All-Star break. That's fair. Just my guess. And
I didn't know they had a full 8 days too.
Yep, they don't play again until next Friday. So they had 8 days pretty much. So, and at this point in time, I don't think with Nurk having his little calf issue, if we see him before the month of March, I think that'll be pie in the sky kind of stuff. But
yeah.
Well,
but other than that, Shin, you're horribly wrong.
Well, I appreciate you taking it easy on me. Yeah, I mean, I think we agree that in the last season or so, that's where he really messed himself up. Where, trading Hassan this trade deadline, it wasn't the end of the world, but it's like, to me, it was, all right, you didn't show me what I wanted to see the last couple seasons, so let's see if you can make up for it. And it just, to me, it didn't happen. But I will say with the Rodney Hood trade, I did kind of hum and haw at it, but I've been big on Rodney Hood since he came out of college, and I was actually really disappointed in that season because he started off the season without Gordon Hayward on the Jazz. So it was like, all right, Rodney Hood's going to be like the main scorer. Like, obviously they have Rudy Gobert, but so I was really high on Rodney Hood, and then he got traded to the Cavs, and I was like, all right, maybe it'll work where he's not the main scorer, and he has LeBron James leading him, one of the best leaders in the NBA. So maybe that'll work out. And then that didn't work out. And then the next season when LeBron's gone, he again wasn't doing very well as the leading scorer. So I had kind of lost a bit of faith in Rodney Hood. I still thought he was an improvement over, Nick Stauskas and Wade Baldwin, who were traded.
Did you guys see that Nick Stauskas either got dropped or something like that? He's not even playing overseas anymore.
Dang, that's
his contract didn't get picked up, but also to kind of go along with like that Rodney Hood talk or whatnot. I think for as long as all of us Blazer fans have been crapping on the whole, like, oh, look, we have continuity and we can do anything with continuity. This season is the absolute proof that, hey, continuity can bring out the better of the can be better for the team than necessarily individual performances. So that's kind of where I also am like hanging my hat on that the starting five as it's looking like for next year can be better, because that is a group with better continuity than any of the, what are we up to, 15 different starting lineups we've rolled out here so far this year.
Yeah.
So
totally. Like that's my big takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the sum of the parts is better than what they are individually. So because like right now, especially now, Dame, CJ, Whiteside to a degree, and Melo, you have 4/5 of a starting lineup that is all ISO ball heavy dominant players. So of course there's not going to be ball movement, not going to be high assist, but this is also not the same team that we're going to run out here next year. So
yeah. Do you want the Blazers to try to get Carmelo back next season?
I wouldn't mind it, because I think Melo is at this point in his career I don't think he's hurting for money. You could fit him into a taxpayer mid-level, a little 2-year deal. I expect Ariza to be back because it's the only thing that makes financial sense. The only way that I can see him not being back is if they they pick up his option and then trade him. But I'm not sure on the cap rules for that. I have to talk to Eric or. Hey, both cap guys I know are named Eric now. But yeah, so I wouldn't mind trying to get Melo back. And by the way, if you had asked me that 8 months ago, if those words would ever come out of my mouth, I would have told you that you are flat out wrong, and I would have to be extremely, extremely drunk or high to utter those words.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Melo as a Blazer. I've had plenty of being disappointed by certain decisions he makes in ISO situations, but. He's going to be a ball stopper sometimes. He's going to have some.
He's playing a different brand of basketball.
He's playing CJ's brand. He's playing CJ's brand.
He's playing. No, I'm talking about what he's doing on the offensive boards. I'm talking about just like the passion that it looks like he's playing with in these veteran teams that he's bounced around on. And I think that when you have depleted teams and hopeless situations like we've seen the past 2 games late in the games, he does settle for those kind of less than satisfying looks. But when we're on and we have a couple more guys healthy and the ball's moving, I think that he's absolutely someone that, to both of your point, is someone that we probably want to bring back, especially at a good value.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the things too, is like when you're the hot shit, when you have a name like Carmelo Anthony and yours don't stink for as long as it did, the best thing that could have happened was that year of slice of humble pie. And so when he talks about having respect for the game and love of the game, and that's why he stayed in shape and tried to stay game ready as much as he could, not knowing what his future was going to be. I think now we're seeing that translate into his play. And like last night, what did he end up shooting? Like 1 of 14, 1 of 15 or something like that over the course of the game. And those are kind of things, that's what I was expecting him to shoot and to bring coming into the season. But the fact that last night is an anomaly and not the norm.
And just FYI to everybody, last night was the 12th of February against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, rough.
Date that will hopefully not live in infamy.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think that dropping that Pelicans game is going to be more damaging in the long run than the Memphis game, because that just gave if the Blazers are going to attempt to limp into the playoffs because Dame only knows how to go for greatness, the Pelicans now own the season series on us. At least with Memphis, if we win the next 2, we own it on them. So
don't we have one more game against the Pelicans? Isn't that? I thought.
Yeah, but it was a 4-game series, and they won. Yeah. So the best we could have done is if we had won this last one, is we could have went for a split.
Got it.
Dang, that's rough. Yeah. So speaking of winning this last one, which we did not, the recent stretch of games, the Blazers played the Lakers. It was basically the memorial for Kobe Bryant. It was a very emotional night for people watching, people playing, that's for sure. So Damian Lillard was the star of the show in that game. I mean, LeBron James was giving it his all, and at the start of the games, he had some emphatic dunks, but it was just...
What's all this controversy surrounding Rachel Nichols regarding her comments about Damian Lillard, first of all, being the guy to be a villain in LA, and then secondly, something about LeBron having a kind of a pass because of the evening's occasion. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't read too much into that. It's just, Rachel Nichols just saying, hey, like everyone on Earth is watching this to watch LeBron, show up for Kobe, and you just
I wasn't.
exactly. It's like you just took a crap on that. So how do you feel about it, Dame? And it's like, no, like we play basketball to win basketball games. Like that's not honoring, Kobe to like take a night off so that LeBron can just like stomp on you.
Yeah, got it.
Well, it's a weird game going into it. I mean, right before Jamie Hudson got on the plane, we sat down and talked to her and was like, how do you even prepare to cover for a game like that? And, what was the mentality of the players going into that game? Because all eyes are on you. All eyes are on, this memoriam basically, or this celebration of life, as LeBron called it, for Kobe. And how do you deal with that? Like, do you want to go in and for lack of a better term, crush Laker fan souls per se by winning that game? And she had said that the feeling she was getting from every player in that locker room was that you go out and you play to honor Kobe's memory by having Mamba mentality.
Totally.
And so, I mean, I think it would have been way more disrespectful for anybody on any side of, no matter the jersey, to come in there and just try to lay down to give something to someone. If it was supposed to be LeBron's moment, well, that's LeBron's job to take the moment.
Totally. And he did it at the start. He was having some good dunks, some good passes, but it was very slow and sloppy at the start of the game, which is totally understandable, especially like with, they did their warm-ups and then it was probably 45 minutes until the game actually started with all the different videos and tributes. So it was just definitely a unique game, that's for sure.
So I mean, and if you want to go for honoring and you want to go for legacy, Dame dropped 45 and 10 that night. The last player to drop 45 and 10 in Staples Center was Kobe back in like 2012, I want to say. So
are you in like a Burger King or something right now, Whitty?
I'm stopping off for beer before I record my podcast. I got Brandon next to me and I owe him for a beer bet. So
there you go.
Sick. Well, we'll say hi to Brandon for us.
Hi, Brandon. Right now he's sitting here just mulling over his beer options. So
what's he thinking? Ask him what he's thinking tonight for his options.
Well, he always goes with fresh squeezed, but apparently that's hard to find in some local gas stations.
Deschutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's decent.
So oh wait, they do have a fresh squeeze right there. Let's see if he notices.
Wow. All right. Well, Christian, how much more did we want to cover this evening?
Well, in the 8 games the Blazers played, the Blazers went 4-4, which is a little disappointing considering the positive stretch they had when Dame was just going straight up inferno. So they beat the Lakers, they beat the Jazz in Moda Center. That was a fun game. I was at that game. That was a blast. Then they lost to the Nuggets, which was really disheartening because it's like, for me, I was talking about trade deadline stuff. Like, the only way that you don't trade Hassan Whiteside is if you win all 3 games. And the Blazers won the first 2, which I did not expect. And then they just got crushed by the Nuggets. And I was like, well, I'm on the trade Hassan Whiteside train. Obviously, that didn't happen. Blazers then beat the Spurs what did I remember about that game? It's been a while. That was a really fun game to be at, too. Shoot, I don't even remember. I'm gonna check that out. Anyway, after that, the very rough game, Blazers Jazz, just ridiculous. The no calls throughout the game and the no call on the very last possession. Man, no goaltend on Rudy Gobert was just ridiculous. I will say
that was terrible. Dame's been much more vocal though. He's been getting teed up, and Stotts kind of led the train on that at the beginning of the season, but now Dame's just not really putting up with it.
I was
and
amazed.
you guys are also missing the Anthony Simons, the concussion for him.
Yes, that game was just wild altogether because that happened. Anthony Simons got kicked his legs out from under him by Royce O'Neal, and then Trevor Ariza on a no call just lost his mind at the ref, which was not ideal for the Blazers because he got ejected. But it was kind of fun to see him get that intense. But the Blazers were running with 7 players for the rest of the game, so That was a rough one and very fun to watch until the last 20 seconds of the game.
I'd say
My hot take for that is I don't think it was a dirty play by Royce O'Neal.
Yeah,
I've gone back and watched the replays. He slid his leg out, yes, but same point in time, he wasn't like looking at Anthony, wasn't paying attention to where he was landing, had his back kind of to him. But I can see how in the heat of the moment, guys are going to be like, "What the f?"
Yeah. And it's a tough angle too. And there was in the Blazers Heat game, there was a similar thing with, I think it was Goran Dragic shooting a 3 toward the end of the half or something like that, and Dame fouled him, and they challenged it and then brought it back, said it wasn't a foul. To me, it kind of looked like it still could have been a foul.
It was a foul. They ruled it a foul. They ruled it an offensive foul on Dragic. So what it was is
that's right.
Dame came off and got the clean block, and Dragic did the Harden thing of kicking his leg out, which caused them both to fall. And so Stotts, I believe, challenged that.
Yes.
And that's what brought it back. And so they reviewed it, and in that review, they're like, nope, it was clean block for Dame, and the only reason there was contact is because the offensive player initiated it. So seeing as that the Heat were over the limit, that sent Dame to the line.
Yeah. By the way, did you see when Gary Trent had an offensive foul while shooting a 3? He literally pulls the guy to the ground.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that.
he was trying to give him a hug. It's fine.
That was crazy. I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" Oh my gosh, that was
Lamar and Kevin didn't even bother to cover that up. Lamar was like, "Yeah, he's grabbed him."
Yeah, I was watching and I'm like, "Why are they calling a foul?" And then I see the replay and I'm like, "What the heck? Like, what is going through your mind there?" That's crazy. But Gary Trent has showed up. But the last couple games he's kind of cooled down a bit. But Gary Trent was on a tear. That's one thing from that Spurs game. Gary Trent was killing it. Him and Ariza
6-7 from 3. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like, and the team I think it was like at the half they had like 15 3-pointers made. It was very impressive 3-point showing from the team and especially from Gary Trent. And it was cool to see in the Heat game. Trevor Ariza showed up. Like after he gets kicked out in the first quarter of the Jazz game, in the game against the Heat, he had, I think, he had like 15 points in the first quarter. I was like, oh, he's on pace for 60. So that was wild. Ariza like had the first 8 points for the Blazers. It was very fun to watch, and glad the Blazers got the win, even though Jimmy Butler wasn't playing. Is obviously you got to get that win.
Here's a fun social experiment that I like to bring up from time to time. So say that Trevor Ariza was playing or was here this entire season over Kent Bazemore. How much better do you think that the Blazers' record would be? Because Ariza's playing with that same kind of energy. He's cutting, he's making the shots that we all watch Bazemore just brick. And so this is kind of like when I'll see a lot of people have some pushback on Stotts for lack of ball movement or stuff like that.
I'll even take that a step farther and say, what if you had not only Ariza in the mix from the get-go, but also Nas in a kind of a higher profile role like we'd seen at times.
You mean instead of play Hezonja?
And that's actually exactly why I say it, Christian, is because I thought to myself, well, you still have Hezonja getting minutes too, and that guy was eating up bad shots. But I thought to myself, well, if you subbed in Nas more and then you had Ariza, I'd say at least five or 7 of those games could have been, won, in my opinion.
So there's one of two situations that stick out in my mind on why Mario Hezonja is getting the minutes that he's getting. One, there's either I'd have to look up who his agent is and find out, but there's either some sort of handshake agent agreement where Neil Olshey, when he signed him, he's pretty much stuck at the Stotts and is like, I'm sorry, you got to play him. We need this relationship, that kind of, backdoor dealing that, fans don't hear a lot about. Or Mario Hezonja has like a PP tape of Stotts. It's one of those two. It's the only things that make sense.
Wow.
Oh, gosh. I was saying before, I was like, I don't know if Stotts legitimately doesn't see how much better Nasir Little is than Mario Hezonja, or if Nasir Little has some hidden, attitude problem that the fans don't see. And I don't know which would be worse of the two. Like, Nasir Little should absolutely be playing more than Mario Hezonja. And Austin was talking before about waiving him, and I was like, I mean, yes, on the one hand, but also like the fact that he's a body with how depleted this team is, like, I'll take anyone to go out on the court for a little bit and not like allow too many points so that someone can get a break. And that's one thing I wanted in that Jazz game. They didn't have Swanigan or Wenyen Gabriel in for the longest time. They played Dame and CJ for the entire second half of that Jazz game. And I was taking offense to it because, I don't know, I was at the game where Nurk got injured. I was at the game where Rodney Hood got injured. And so I think in my mind, I'm just like, man, you got to like look ahead and be like, is this worth risking injury for these guys? So for me, I was like, you got to give these guys, even if it's just a couple minutes of a break, like they might even perform better, because CJ was missing a lot of shots in the fourth quarter of that game too. So that's just one little nugget there where it's like, yeah, like having those extra bodies is helpful regardless. If everyone on your team is injured or waived because they suck, then Dame and CJ can't carry this team to wins. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, what do we have to look forward to here?
Nothing. The world is ending.
The All-Star break without Damian Lillard.
Is everybody watching the XFL? No.
I'm honestly trying to. I'm all on the Seattle Dragons train. Apparently, analysts say they're going to be the worst team in the league, but I think it's going to be fun. I haven't been able to watch last week or this weekend upcoming. I won't be able to, but hopefully I'll get to watch some after that.
Well, last week they got their butt handed to them, and that's about as much XFL as I'm going to take in.
They just need to get some bigger names in there. Like, even if it's like Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, like just get a name and then people are going to watch, Right. Maybe not with fervent admiration, but maybe they'll enjoy it. But upcoming after the All-Star break, Blazers Pelicans hopefully be able to stop Zion from scoring a career high again. That's Friday the 21st, so 8 days from now, as Whitty was saying. And then Pistons Trailblazers is the 23rd, then Celtics, then Pacers, Hawks, Magic. Ooh, Wizards, Suns, Kings, Suns after that. So it's not a tough stretch, really. It's Celtics and Pacers are going to be hard. Pelicans are for sure going to be hard. Hawks are going to try to prove something. But, these next 10 games, the Blazers could definitely win at least 6 or 7. I mean, if you can win 8 or 9, then you're in good shape going into the playoff push. But how are you guys feeling?
Feel good about it. Dame will be back. We'll probably drop another recording here, probably not next week before the next game, but following the All-Star break and a series of a couple games, I'm assuming. As for the outlook on games following that, I am hopeful. I remain hopeful, as you do, Christian, and think that Dame's injury hopefully shouldn't take him out very long.
Yeah.
So I'm on the mark. Well, I'm on the marker, and I kind of want to ask you guys this. You're talking about getting more rest for Dame, and not having him play. I think him and CJ are still again in the top 3 in minutes played and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you're having this depleted roster, do you want Dame to carry him into the playoffs and have him limp in as an 8 seed? And I don't think that they'll get swept and just get absolutely boat raced in the playoffs if they match up with the Lakers. I think that they've played them well so far this year. I don't think that they'd win coming out of that series, but I don't know. It's hard for me. Like last night when Dame went down, I blew up my text thread of just a bunch of emojis of and GIFs of tanks roaming the streets and tiny kitties driving tanks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I also understand that that's not the mentality that Dame has. And if Dame is healthy, he's going to play, to touch back on where you were saying that he played like that entire second half. Well, that's probably because Dame was like, I'm playing because you need me to play.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that. And obviously with your star player, with your franchise player, Stotts can say all he wants. Like, I need you to sit. And it's almost, I'm going to go tell mom and dad that you're not letting me play. Kind of, those things. Because all it takes is one phone call to Jody Allen from Dame saying, hey, Stotts is trying to sit me and I'm not about that, before Jody's like, I guess maybe make him play.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. And there's one little thing that I'm surprised you guys didn't touch on when you were talking about being short of bodies. I saw a lot of the infamous Blazers Twitter throwing a fit about the fact that Jalen Horde and Moses Brown hadn't been called up yet.
Yeah.
When you're hurting for bodies.
Yeah.
You guys are aware of what the reason was for that, though, right? They have a little under 2 weeks left on their contracts.
Yeah, because it's 45 days total. What is it? 45 games total?
Yep, 45. No, it's 45 days of team activity. Practice is counting practices count in game activity. Travel
Totally.
days count in game activity. So you take all that into account, and yeah, they probably could have used them right then and there. But, it's kind of weighing your options of, do we eventually want to pick up the full contracts, when these guys aren't necessarily ready? Yes, they're a warm body, but, or like, how do we want to use them? If they do view it as that they'll make it into the playoffs, it's a little more financially smart for them to wait until the absolute deadline to be like, yeah, let's sign these guys, or if they want to pick somebody up off the waiver wire. So if you bring them up too early to kind of fill in, you kind of pigeonhole yourself in like, this is the route we're going, and we're probably going to have to kiss them goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I suppose we should be kissing our audience goodbye as well, Mr. Ryan, Whitty, Whitledge. We are attempting to keep our episodes between about 30-45 minutes. So,
God bless your souls. My co-hosts would love you. They try to rope me into that all the time, and I tell them, F no.
you and Christian can have a marathon special.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah, man. If I could, if Christian, we'll have to get together and roll out like a giant Bill Simmons 2-parter, like where each of us is 2.5 hours or something.
Oh yes, that sounds amazing.
I'm sure. All right, well, everybody, give us a follow on Twitter at Peeps and Plaid, as well as Spotify. Go check that out, 5 stars, and Apple blah 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 blahs, and Instagram Peeps and Plaid. And then I'm gonna allow Mr. Ryan Whitty Whitledge to plug his show. That way, we make sure we get everything right.
So I'm the Blazer Tag podcast, the most drunk Blazer podcast there is on the planet. We enjoy some libations and either complain or celebrate together. You can follow the show's Twitter page at BlazerTagPDX if you want to find my basketball takes. If you want to get some hot takes on below deck yachting life and some Real Housewives and some Vanderpump Rules, you can follow me personally at the Whitty Ryan on Twitter.
Any Bachelor?
Yes, but I am trying to convince the wife that she needs to turn this season off because it's absolutely horrible.
You guys should start a podcast.
As soon as Victoria P left, I was out, and I can't stand Peter. He smiles and laughs way too much.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we could talk about this for a while. Anyway, yeah, totally. Like, huge thanks for coming on through technical difficulties and on short notice and all that. Thanks for coming on, Ryan. Really appreciate you coming on for a third time now. Always a blast talking to you.
Thanks, man.
All right. All right. Later, guys.
We'll be right back.